Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take some really compelling sources, articles, research, you name it, and we try to boil it all down.
Yeah, distill it into the most important bits of knowledge, just for you.
Exactly. Our goal is to give you that shortcut, to being genuinely well-informed. Find those surprising facts, those aha moments that hopefully stick with you. Today, though, we're plunging into something pretty challenging, unsettling, really, by its very nature.
Definitely.
Our main source is an article called Sacrifice and Social Cohesion, an apocalyptic view. And what grabbed me right away, and I think it'll grab you too, is the author's opening.
The warning.
Yeah, almost a warning. Talks about censorship concerns, things left unsaid. It's a bold way to start. Hints at really controversial stuff.
It certainly sets a tone.
And the main question the author tackles, it's a big one. Why is the world so evil, and how does evil triumph? I mean, that's not exactly light dinner conversation, is it?
Not at all.
No.
And the way he proposes to answer it is just as intense.
So maybe clarify the author's intention here, because that's important context.
Right. It's crucial. He specifically says this isn't being presented as the truth, not in that definitive way.
Okay.
Instead, he calls it tools for theorizing. Think of it like a specific lens, maybe a framework, designed to help us, develop critical perspectives on some really disturbing events.
So our job today isn't to agree or disagree necessarily?
Exactly. Our goal is to explore these theories, look at the historical comparisons he makes, and just consider the implications of thinking this way.
Got it. So the mission for you, listening in, is to unpack these tough theories with us. We want to understand the historical context he draws on, and really think critically about what this might reveal.
About human behavior, maybe?
Yeah.
Social cohesion?
Yeah, fundamental stuff. And how societies might sometimes bind themselves together in some pretty extreme ways. Okay, let's dive in. It's going to be a challenging path.
For sure.
All right, so the author jumps right into the deep end. He doesn't hold back on the controversy.
No, he doesn't.
He applies his theory straight away to a really sensitive current conflict. He frames Israel's bombardment of Gaza.
And this is where it gets immediately provocative.
He argues it's not just conventional warfare. In his view, it looks more like ritual sacrifice than just pure military strategy.
Which is a really jarring claim. Intentionally so, I think. It forces you to stop and reconsider what you're seeing.
And what details does he use to sort of build that interpretation?
Well, he points to some stark facts from the source material. Things like nearly half of Gaza's population being under 18.
Right.
And that children make up the majority of casualties, which is just tragic, horrific.
Yeah.
But then he adds another layer. He emphasizes that the violence is conducted openly and visibly.
Meaning, not hidden away.
Exactly. His point is, this isn't about covering up atrocities. According to him, it's an intentional display, which suggests, in his framework, a purpose beyond just military goals. It's a really difficult point to even process.
And that's where his interpretation goes further, isn't it? Connecting it to a narrative.
Yes. He argues that Israel, within his specific theory, is displaying these events to fulfill what he calls an apocalyptic religious narrative.
Okay, can you unpack apocalyptic narrative a bit?
Sure. Generally, it involves a belief in some kind of coming cataclysmic conflict, often seen as divinely ordained, that leads to a new world order.
Right, end time stuff.
Pretty much. And the author suggests that, in this context, the belief is that Israel must face the world united, go through these immense trials, to eventually triumph with divine help.
So it's framing current events through this very specific ancient prophetic lens.
Exactly. And that's critical because it shifts the perspective away from just geopolitics. It puts it into a belief system where today's events are seen as fulfilling prophecy.
Which means the isolation, the condemnation.
From this extreme viewpoint, yes, could be interpreted not just as negative consequences, but as a necessary part of this unfolding story.
Wow. Okay.
And this brings us back to his idea of tools for theorizing, Whether you buy the interpretation or not, what's undeniable is the power of a narrative like that.
Even an extreme one.
Especially an extreme one, perhaps. Its power to shape actions, interpretations, provide a sense of purpose, however disturbing that purpose might seem from the outside.
It's definitely a lot to take in. And you might think this kind of framing, linking conflict to religious prophecy is maybe unique to our time. Modern disputes.
What is it?
That's exactly where the author goes next. He takes us back through history. And this is where, for me, it got really fascinating.
He asks if this pattern is actually new.
Yeah. Or are there these deep echoes from the past? suggesting a much older, maybe even primal way societies operate.
Like what examples does he bring up?
Well, he talks about the Aztecs. We know about them, right? Mass human sacrifices, especially before big wars.
Right. The skull racks on Pontley.
Yeah, temples filled with skulls. Then he mentions the Phoenicians. Roman accounts, anyway, suggest they practiced child sacrifice, which is just horrifying, even by ancient standards.
Truly awful.
And he doesn't stop there. Even the Romans, often seen as, the height of civilization back then.
But they had their own version.
He calls it disguised human sacrifice, basically executing enemies at the Temple of Jupiter after their big victory parades, their triumphs.
So across these really different cultures, different times,
He sees a common thread.
ritualized killing.
Exactly. And that leads him to ask this really broad, uncomfortable question. Why? Why do civilizations keep doing this ritualized mass killing?
And then he connects it back to the present day.
Right. He asserts pretty directly in his theory that Israel, in his view, is following that same disturbing ancient pattern.
So it's not just history for history's sake. He's drawing a direct and very challenging line.
Yeah. Urging us to look for these fundamental, maybe hidden, common behaviors, especially around how groups stick together and act under extreme pressure.
Which brings us to that analogy he uses.
The river behind your back. Yeah, this is fascinating. It's from Chinese military history.
Right. Can you explain that?
Sure. The idea is simple, but powerful. If you position your army, your soldiers, with a river right behind them, there's no escape route.
Nowhere to run.
Exactly. They have to fight or they die. And paradoxically, this situation, this lack of options, it unifies them. It galvanizes them. They fight like hell because there's literally no other choice.
Okay, so how does he apply that analogy? Because that seems like a leap.
It is, and it's where his theory gets really unsettling. He suggests the river, for Israel, in his framework, isn't water. It's what he calls the ultimate taboo, killing children.
Wow. Okay.
His argument is by committing what is seen as the most reviled act, by crossing that ultimate moral line, Israel essentially forces itself into that inescapable corner.
Like the army with the river behind it.
Exactly. And the author suggests this becomes a grim mechanism, a way to strengthen unity among its own people against a hostile world that condemns them, as it sort of burns the bridges, eliminates the option of compromise or retreat. Only unified defiance is left.
That's a deeply disturbing application of the analogy.
It is, and he takes it even further. He implies that within this theoretical view, some Israeli extremists want the world's hatred.
They want condemnation. Why?
Yeah. Because, he suggests, it helps fulfill these eschatological or end times prophecies.
Right. Eschatological meaning the ultimate destiny, the end of the world type stuff.
Yeah. So the idea he's presenting is that these extremists might believe global condemnation fits a narrative of an isolated, besieged people chosen for a final, transformative struggle, a struggle that will bring about a new, divinely chosen order.
It really highlights just how extreme and, frankly, uncomfortable this whole theory is.
Absolutely. We have to keep stressing this is the author's specific speculative framework we're examining.
But if we step back and think about the psychology, that analogy, however disturbing its application here, it does offer some insight, maybe, into how groups can achieve intense cohesion.
How so?
Well, when a group commits extreme acts and then faces this massive external threat, this condemnation that labels them as other or monsters.
Even if they provoked it themselves, according to the theory.
Right, that external pressure can forge intense internal unity. The feeling becomes, it's us against the world, no room for internal dissent. Stand together or perish, even if that unity is built on something horrific.
It creates an absolute us versus them.
Precisely.
Okay, let's keep unpacking this. Because the author uses another really compelling and, again, quite disturbing thought experiment to illustrate these ideas about cohesion.
The island of flesh-eating monkeys.
That's the one. Yeah, brace yourself a bit for this one. It's a story, but it's designed to powerfully show his core ideas about how unity forms under the absolute worst conditions.
Lay it out for us.
Okay, so picture this. 100 men. They're poor, uneducated, they all speak different languages, totally different cultures. Suddenly, bam, they're stranded on some remote island.
Sounds bad already.
Gets worse. All the resources they need, food, water, everything, are guarded by an infinite number of incredibly aggressive, flesh-eating monkeys.
Infinite. Okay, so it's basically hopeless.
Utterly hopeless, it seems. No common ground, no obvious way to survive, just instant, terrifying despair.
So what happens? Do they just give up? Turn on each other?
That's the fascinating part and the core of his thought experiment. They don't. Despite it seeming impossible, they actually start to develop cohesion.
How?
Well, first, they start creating a common language, somehow bridging those deep divides. Then they form a founding myth. They convince themselves, against all logic, that they were chosen by God for this insane task.
Creating meaning out of chaos.
Exactly.
Wow.
And they invent rituals, elaborate ones, sexual practices, religious ceremonies, all designed specifically to bond them together.
And leadership. How do they choose leaders in that mess?
This is crucial, not by wisdom, not by strength, but what the author calls sacrifice.
Sacrifice, like
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah. The one who proves the most devotion through enduring extreme pain or even dying for the group, that's the leader. It demonstrates this ultimate commitment.
Wow. That's intense.
So the equation that kind of emerges from this story is stark. Hopelessness plus sacrifice. Unity and transformation.
That's a powerful, if bleak, formula.
Incredibly powerful in its simplicity. Even if the mechanism is deeply unsettling, it suggests these huge societal shifts, this intense unity, can be born right at the edge of despair. And the cost, well, it can be immense.
And a story goes further, doesn't it, about their connection?
It does. Over time, the author says, the group develops synchronicity.
Synchronicity, meaning
Yeah.
like a deep, intuitive connection, almost telepathic. They can sense danger, act as one single entity without needing words, a kind of hive mind cohesion.
Born from shared trauma and this extreme commitment.
Yeah, an emergent group intelligence. And he presents this whole metaphorical story as a kind of dark mirror for real societies.
Illustrating his theory that societies might forge their solidarity, their identity, through these rituals of violence and collective suffering, turning individuals into this single-minded group focused on survival.
So if we try to boil down the core argument, the really challenging takeaway from the source material,
What would it be?
it's that societies historically, and maybe even now, find unity through ritualized violence and sacrifice.
Often targeting specific groups. Children, enemies.
Yes, according to the theory, as a deliberate way to bind their own people together, create a common cause, reinforce that internal solidarity against perceived threats, no matter how awful the means.
And we need to stress again the Gaza example he uses.
It's presented as a modern case study for his theory, but it's highly controversial, very speculative.
Right. He's not stating it as fact, but using it to apply his framework for discussion, for analysis.
So if we take this idea seriously as a tool for theorizing, then things like sacrifice, breaking taboos, even collective hatred, they're framed very differently.
Not just as destructive forces.
No. Within this framework, they become powerful, disturbing, yes, but powerful mechanisms for creating cohesion, strength, maybe even ensuring group survival against what are seen as existential threats.
It definitely challenges our usual, maybe more comfortable ideas about how unity is built. Suggests a darker, maybe more primal aspect to social bonding.
It really does.
So after all that, what does this mean for you listening? We've gone through some genuinely disturbing, complex theories today.
Definitely not easy listening.
No. The author's ideas about unity through ritualized violence, through sacrifice, they're tough to sit with. They force us to confront some uncomfortable possibilities about, well, human nature and how societies work.
Exactly. And understanding these frameworks, even if you ultimately disagree with them, it helps, doesn't it? It gives you a broader lens, maybe a more challenging one, to analyze complex world events.
It lets you question assumptions, look for deeper patterns, maybe.
Yeah, even uncomfortable patterns in human behavior.
Yeah.
It's about expanding your intellectual toolkit, not necessarily adopting a new belief system.
It helps you see the power of narrative, maybe,
Mm.
and fear, and shared extreme experience, how those things shape groups.
Absolutely. Recognizing those forces at play.
Which leaves us with a final thought.
Yeah.
Something for you to maybe chew on, building on what we've discussed.
Yeah.
If this human drive for unity, for cohesion, can, as these theories suggest, sometimes manifest through ritualized violence, through breaking the deepest taboos, then what other events? Historical, contemporary.
Might we re-examine them through this uncomfortable lens?
Yeah. And what might that tell us about the foundational, maybe darker aspects of social bonding? The parts we often prefer not to look at.
That's a heavy question to end on.
It is, but it follows directly from the material we explored. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into what we've called the unsettling logic of sacrifice.
We hope it gave you some things to think about.
Yeah, keep exploring, keep thinking critically. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.